Permit me to apologize for the delay. Sir, the motion before the House is a very simple and straightforward motion. And I have no doubt, sir, that it is grounded in good sense, and I would say in some degree of nobility. And we on this side do not have a fundamental objection in principle to the terms of the motion. But a lot of statements have been made about the motion itself that I believe should be addressed. And a lot of statements have been made outside of the scope of the motion, which are on the record now. And I believe that it would behoove me to traverse those statements as well. I want to begin, sir, by recognizing that the sponsor of the motion herself accepts in the language of the motion that the motion does not express a truism. It says that there have been consistent reports from new public servants that they were informed that they must wait 3 months before they receive their salary. So there is a number of suppositions inherent in that statement. So I listened to my friend, for example, the Honorable Member Finance, and the Honorable Member asserted factually that this is the situation. In reality, the motion itself doesn't say so. The motion says that information has been received and reports have been consistent in relation to that information, that it takes 3 months. Now, I know of cases that it took 3 months for persons to get paid. So I don't doubt the veracity, but I just want to state for the record that it is not a fact that persons take 3 months to be paid in the public service. I heard it said repeatedly that it is a policy. I want to reject that forcefully. If you check the speech of the Honorable Member who last spoke, repeatedly she spoke of a policy. There is no such policy, at least not in this government. The mover of the motion also, to her credit, admitted that this situation about which the motion speaks existed across governments. And as so far as it is real, you on that side of the house must accept responsibility for being in government for 5 years from 2015 and 2020 to 2020 and not fixing this problem. You didn't fix the problem. And the mover of the motion, as I said to her credit, has recognized that. And as my honorable colleague is reminding me, it's not that she was not positioned to change it. We heard about how quickly things can get done in the government and how things are being done in the government. Take, for example, you got into government on May the 15th, 2015, You took about a week to be sworn in, and you took another week to be assigned your responsibilities and to establish your bureaucratic structure. And after the expiration of 1 month, you raise your salary by 100%. 100%. So, Mr. Speaker, the point I am making is that the mover of the motion, though belatedly was appointed a minister, spent at least 2 years, 1 year, 1 year in the ministry, and that is a long enough time for her to have corrected this situation. And then she obviously replaced a minister who was there 4 years prior. And again, that is a long enough time to correct the problem. Now, I also want to point out, Mr. Speaker, that there are many, many persons working in the public sector who join the public sector and are paid within 1 month. There are many, many thousands of persons who are working in the public sector and they are paid within 1 month or the month for which they work. Across the public sector. I would tell you the Deeds and Commercial Registry Authority is an agency within the public sector. And if you go and work there from July the 1st, by July the 31st, you will be paid. I can tell you that. I have ministerial responsibility for that agency. The point I want to make is that you cannot use one brush and paint the entire public sector. And I say so not denying the fact that there is a delay of the type that your motion describes. But all I am saying is that we must put the public record, we must set the public record accurately. And don't give the impression that it is across the public domain that at every single agency that it takes more than 1 month to process a person's payment. Now let us deal with the issue of the delay. Now, there are many reasons why there is a delay, and permit me to say, and I have no doubt my colleague, the Honorable Minister of Finance, when he speaks, will address it more elaborately, that efforts are being made long before you put this motion on this motion paper. Efforts are being made and were being made to rectify this very situation. Because many of us in government are aware of this reality. So it's not a case of Christopher Columbus. We on this side are working on rectifying the situation long before the motion. And that is the reason why we can say positively to you that it would be impossible to bind oneself to a month period as you are suggested. We are asking for an amendment here. We are proposing an amendment to put reasonable time. Obviously, that means less than 3 months. But to bind ourselves to a 1 month time frame in a public sector machinery is not healthy at this point in time. And there are many, many reasons why. It has to do with, for example, the process of an application. The application goes to the Public Service Ministry. Then the Public Service Ministry, in accordance with law, depending upon the status, would have to forward that to the Public Service Commission. The Public Service Commission is an autonomous body that regulates its own process and procedure, and that is the commission that is vested with the responsibility and authority to approve the appointments. That takes a time. When that approval is granted, then that approval has to be sent back to the Public Service Ministry. Then that letter has to be sent by the Public Service Ministry to the particular agency where the person is applying for the job. Then that agency has to put that data into their financial system and then send that record to the Ministry of Finance. That is a process. And no matter how much you try to abbreviate that process, it is a process that has the different and disparate steps to which I have made reference. And I don't know how you can condense that within 1 month. Now, here is the problem. Many persons take the liberty, and the persons who are complaining, they are complicit in this, and of course they do it. They do it because they want a job. So a PS or a minister will say, start, and we have begun your process. And therein lies one of the difficulties. Therein lies one of the difficulties. So you end up working while your application is being processed. Now, it should have been the other way around. You should not have been allowed to work until you get a formal letter of appointment. But the very persons who turn around to complain about the length of time, they themselves contribute significantly to the process by turning on to work because they want to work, and I don't fault them. But at the same time, they must appreciate that they are turning on to work without being hired. That is the truth. That is the truth. What is that? Reasonable would depend upon the circumstances, and you are a lawyer. You must know what is reasonableness. Reasonable means that from the time we know that 3 months is unreasonable. You accept that? So we start from that logic. 3 months is unacceptable. So it's less than 3 months. I have just outlined to you a process that it's very difficult to curtail or control, and that is why to bind oneself to a 1 month period would be a difficulty. Now the system can work perfectly if the person, when he or she applies, is told, stay home, we will reply to you. Now, once that happens, there is no delay. If the system takes 6 months to process it, there is no delay. You're not going to work for 6 months. But a lot of people do not want that. And when we come here, we mustn't come here blinded to reality. We must recognize what the reality is. And you ought to be fresh out of government. So you ought to understand how the governmental system works. There's another scenario that you must address your mind to. It is this. Many public servants, as the Honorable Minister explains in her presentation, are employed by contract. They may even be on a permanent establishment, or they may not be. But they have contracts of service or services. Those contracts have a renewal clause that allows for the renewal of the contract, but with a conditionality that there must be a 3 months notice given if there is an intent to renew. Now, that renewal clause and that notice provision is observed more in the breach. So the person waits until the 3 months is about to expire and then makes an application for a renewal. By that time, there is an accounting machinery that will remove her name from the system, including the payroll. Once that contract expires and it is not accompanied within the contractual stipulated time, with a notice of renewal. And that is another reality. And that renewal also takes a process. It is not that you will serve a notice to your head or supervisor, and that automatically means that your contract is going to be renewed. You don't have a guarantee right to a renewal. So you are requesting a renewal, and it is open for that request to be rejected. But quite apart from that eventuality, you have to deal with the process. That contract now has to travel the road, because approval, the power of approval may not lie in your immediate supervisor. It may not even lie in your permanent secretary's hands. It may lie at the Public Service Commission. It may lie at the Public Service Ministry. And that's another process that is triggered. And if you are off the payroll, by the time they get you back on, months elapse. That is another factual reality that you ought to address your mind to. Government is a complex thing. You hold us, as you should, rigidly to a standard of transparency and accountability. And we wish to withstand that and to comply with those standards. But those things, they consume time. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, while, as I said, we recognize that the motion addresses a problem, we must also be realistic. We must be realistic and pragmatic if we want to conscientiously address the problem that the motion has raised. And that is why we are making the proposal of an amendment into the resolve clause to give us some degree of timeous elasticity, to give us some time rather than bind us to a time frame that the machinery itself may not be able to comply with. So, Mr. Speaker, that is what I would like to say on the motion, but a lot more have been said, because some aggrieved party whose motion was disallowed by Your Honor has chosen this motion as the platform to prosecute the disallowed motion, and therefore has used this motion as a basis to speak about all matters under the sun, including cost of living and everything else that we have heard of. And it is not a matter of importance, it's a matter of relevance. But, Mr. Speaker, the train has gone off the track, and I am on the train. So I am going to the destination where the train is going. So, Mr. Speaker,
Honorable AG, I'm just listening. You said the train off the track, meaning that somehow the speaker allowed this thing to go off the track.
well,
I saw a lot of relevance between the two issues, because if I can't get paid in a timely manner, I got serious consequences.
I did note, I did note Your Honor's absence from the chair for a conspicuous period of time.
Absence doesn't really mean absence. Absence physically, present virtually.
So, sir, we were regaled here about cost of living increases and about the plight of the ordinary man from my honorable colleagues on the other side, and many speakers on our side would have given reasons why we are in this social, economic situation. We all know what is happening in the global environment. and the external factors over which we have no control that are determining certain realities in our country. So, for example, in 2019, when my friends were in government, one container from China used to cost 4,000 US to arrive in Guyana. Freight. Now, I just took a container off the wharf yesterday. It's 18,000 US. 18,000 US. Yes, I always do well. 18,000 US. And that's just freight charges. I am not speaking 18,000 US is about how much? 3 million? How much? $3.6 million from 800,000. That is how freight charges alone. And we have adjusted the regulations and the laws and the customs to allow for calculation of duties and excise taxes that do not take into account that increase in freight. So that increase by a tax measure is not being allowed to pass on to the consumer. But you live in a free business environment. We have removed completely all taxes from gasoline and diesel and kerosene. And let us go, when my honorable members on that side speak, I think my friend Minister Hamilton spoke to it. And I think Minister Indar also spoke to it. You really get an impression, honestly, you have a gift. I must give it to you. You have a gift of coming here or over there and make a presentation that is so convincing, as though you just dropped from planet Mercury. You are not here in Guyana. Moreover, you are not in government from 2015 to 2020. And while you are in government, you imposed on the very poor people that we hear you vanguarding about here tonight. The very poor people, you dropped 200 taxes on their backs. 200 taxes on their backs. VAT on electricity, VAT on water, VAT on medical supplies, VAT on educational supplies, VAT on the donkey cart man, VAT on the death announcement man, right across every single license fees were increased by 100 and 200%. You went to state lands, and you raised the state land rents and rates by 1,500%. Those people are poor people. You went to West Coast Berbice and on the quarantine coast, you sent tax officers to calculate the people bygone in their backyard so that you can tax them. You didn't know that? You didn't know how poor those people were then? You didn't know that? You sent home 1,900 Amerindians. 1,900 Amerindians. CSOs, 1,900, one swipe. You didn't know that they were poor. You didn't have an appreciation of what you were doing to the Amerindian economy. One morning, you sent home 1,800 workers from Wales Estate. Then 2 months after, you sent home another 4,000 from Gaisuku. You didn't understand how poor people were? You didn't understand that? You sent home thousands out of the public service because you believed that they were supportive of the PVP. You didn't know how poor they were. You got your Ministry of Housing to attempt to seize core homes from single mothers. That is what you did. I had to go to court and get court orders against it. You took away the lands from poor rice farmers, some of them who voted for you, so that you can give your party group chairman in West Coast Berbice. You didn't know those people were poor? You didn't know those people were poor? So, Mr. Speaker, when they come here and they try to play to the emotions of the Guyanese people, you must understand, as you said in your presentation, that the Guyanese people are not fools. They voted you out. They voted out. All of you. They voted you out because they knew what you were doing to them, what you were using. The business community knew what you were using SOKU to do, and what you are using the GRA to do, and what you are using the gaming authority to do, to extract money from them for corrupt purposes. I am a lawyer. I have all those information.
Your time is up, but I could allow you 5 minutes to continue if someone makes that motion.
Your Honor, asking kindly that the Honorable Attorney General be given 5 minutes to conclude his presentation.
Thank you, Honorable.
Yeah. So,
Minister
Mr.
Maritime.
Speaker,
Go ahead, PhD.
it is this government that reversed those 200 measures. And today we have VAT-free water, VAT-free electricity, VAT-free medical supply, VAT-free education, cash grant, and all the other grants that my honorable member Zulfikar Mustafa spoke about. So when the honorable member Amanda Desir can come here after eating the duck curry and the coconut choker and the dal, and then come here and try to say that people are hungry out there, she did not say that she ate it too. And I saw her went back for two times. I was monitoring her, she was sitting next to me. So she must come here, Your Honor, and speak about those things. Our Guyanese brothers and sisters are intelligent. And Your Honor, it is already a matter of public record that the honorable member worked her entire life with the People's Progressive Civic Government, her entire professional life. And her last held salary, her last held remuneration package was about 1.8 million. 1.8 million, and today she is a champion of poor people. She knows who is eating and who not eating. 1.8 million. I never said what she said, and I am getting more than that. That's public record, and I deserve it. In fact, I deserve a little more. But Mr. Speaker, we can't come here. We can't come here and pretend to represent poor people and have no credentials. You have no track record. You live a life of a bourgeoisie, work with the very government, all your professional life that you turn around now and criticizing as the most demonic force on planet Earth, drawing a salary of 1.8 million a month, and then pretending to represent poor people. So, Mr. Speaker, I believe that we have had a good, comprehensive discussion on the motion. I support the motion in principle, subject to the approval of the amendment that we will be tendering. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.